Okay, we're back with another episode of the Big Thoughts podcast with your host, Gordon.
And your host, Fred Afrifa F17.
Yes, and as we always do, we ask our community, what would you like us to speak about in our upcoming podcast? And we ran a poll in the community.
Correct.
What was the different topics that we asked?
So the different topics that Gordon put in the community, by the way, if you aren't in a community yet and you want to be involved, just send us a DM or a message or an email saying community. And we'll be able to add you. So, go on and put in the community. Hello, good morning. Help us choose the next topic for our podcast episode. The first topic that was put on here was how to build confidence on stage. Second one was engaging with the audience. Good topic. Number 3, adapting to different speaking environments. Okay. Dealing with difficult audiences. Okay. And number 5 was enhancing your delivery style.
And what got the most votes?
Drum roll, please. The most votes was how to build confidence on stage.
Okay.
So building confidence on stage, which is an interesting one. So I think when we talk about public speaking and we talk about confidence, often people straight away think of delivering the speech, delivering the presentation, doing the meeting. And if we're going to talk about building confidence on stage, we have to talk about the things you do before you get on stage.
100%. And as they always say, the anticipation is worse than the reality. So let's say, for example, you're at one of our workshops. If you're sitting in your chair and we ask who would like to come to the front, it's natural that you're going to be nervous. So as Fred said, in those moments is what you need to do. So when you do go on the stage, you can be confident and you're able to share your message effectively.
I totally agree. And for you to be less confident, for you to be more confident on stage, you need to do the preparation beforehand. And it's something as simple as doing an introduction in a meeting and going over how you're going to introduce yourself.
Yes.
Because I was speaking to one of our previous students. I won't say any names, but she's completed our program and she did fantastically well. And she mentioned how sometimes during work meetings, she knows that she's just going to have to introduce herself, but that is so nerve-wracking. And she's like, all I have to do is introduce myself. Why is it so nerve-wracking? And I'm like, look, something as simple as an introduction of self should be practiced beforehand.
100%.
Just go over it in your head and understand that these are the things that you have to do prior so that you can be confident while you do it.
And one of the things that we always say is that the spike in anxiousness and anxiety lasts somewhere between 45 and 60 seconds. So to your point, Fred, it's especially in those opening moments that getting the introduction right is important. So that when you have a strong start, again, first impressions mean everything. You're able to say to yourself, you know what? The first 15 seconds went really well, and then you're able to actually build in the confidence that you're after.
Honestly, and something I always do, especially because I have to do quite long keynotes, usually an hour. A big mistake is going over or trying to go over your presentation just before you go on stage.
You can't remember everything.
You can't. And the funny thing is, I used to do that, and I used to make so many mistakes. Yeah. So I'm going through the slides, and I'm like, oh, I forgot that slide, because I'm panicking
and
just
it's
beforehand.
Natural to forget things.
So,
but then when it comes in your mind, oh, there was that one thing I was meant to say. Everything unravels because you're now inside your head.
Honestly, so the better thing to do is just before a speech, just go over your opening lines. Go over your introduction. So my keynote is over an hour. But because I've practiced, I know what I'm going to say next. It's just that in the moment, I'm trying to do that last minute practice. Because the spike in anxiety lasts 45 seconds, it's important to get that 45 seconds on point. So I just practice my opening line, and I know that if I ace it, then my anxiety will go down and I'll be okay.
100%. And even before doing the introduction, something I always encourage people to do is to breathe. Allow yourself to be present in the moment. So rather than as soon as you go on the stage, you start speaking straight away, speaking fast and making all these different mistakes. Go on the stage, take a deep breath, say, okay, I've got this. Get yourself into a calm state. As you mentioned, do the introduction. Now 45 seconds have passed. That spike in anxiety has now dipped, and it's now, all right, I've got this. And also what we always say is that once you reduce uncertainty, you also reduce the anxiety as a result. So one thing I always encourage people to do is to have a conversational tone. When you start to say, hi guys, how are you doing? Because once you get a positive response from your audience, it says to you, you know what? They're humans. Because a lot of time we demonize them, we think that they're judging us. But once you're able to have a positive response from them, it's like, okay. A lot of time it helps to deal with that pressure, and it's something that helps me as well.
I think especially in meetings, it's really important because meetings, especially with senior stakeholders, is something that a lot of people struggle with. So going in, like you said, just having a casual conversation with these people, something that can help reduce your nerves, because you're going to humanize them and realize that, you know.
And that's the key thing, humanizing them. And this is a conversation we had today. There's someone in our cohort and they said, Fred, I need a one-to-one. One thing I need to improve on is my confidence, especially when it comes to meetings and I'm engaging with senior stakeholders. So the mistake they've made there is that they focus too much on the external context. So they've seen them as this senior person and it has to go perfectly. But like you said, it's about humanizing them as much as possible because they are just individuals. So for me, how I always approach meetings at the very start, for the first 10 seconds, I try to have a casual conversation. How are you doing? How's the weather? What have you been up today? How are you? Once we engage in a conversation and I feel that I'm calm and I'm ready, then I'll get started with the meeting and the topics that I was looking to discuss.
That's gold. That's really, really helpful. Something that I do, so I sometimes do keynotes in front of about 500-600 people, and I don't always get the opportunity to speak to them beforehand, because I'll be there preparing and then they all come in and then I have to do my presentation. Or there's already a program happening, I'm going in, I'm doing a presentation. So something I do on stage, since we speak about on stage, is I take a big step forward before I speak. Now, it may just sound like it's a step forward, but psychologically, you're telling yourself, okay, let's do this. And you're stepping into your presentation. Similarly, before a big race, I'll slap my arms. And you know what I'm saying? And it's just a silly thing, but it's a statement of intent of, okay, now we're going into this. And often, you see with our students, people take backward steps. And when you're anxious, anxiety wants you to be stiff and rigid and awkward. Whereas when you are loose and fluid, then you are a lot more confident as a result.
And the key thing you've mentioned there is the intention, because the common mistake people make when it comes to public speaking is they tend to be in a very fixed position, and then as a result their volume is very quiet because they just want to get it over with and because they're overwhelmed by how they're feeling internally. But by taking that step forward, it's that intention that, you know what, I'm going to get everyone's focus, attention, and I'm going to be confident in this moment. And as a result, you're more inclined to have measured movement around the stage. And that takes me to my next point, that movement is something that helps you to alleviate a lot of the pressure that you're under. So rather than the next time when you're doing a presentation, you're in front of people, to just be in a fixed position and you feel as though everyone is looking at you, by just moving around the stage, you feel as though I'm in control. And as a result, you can have a conversational tone, be yourself, and then become confident as the time goes on. Because once you build that momentum, it does become easier from that point.
Totally agree. Now, there's something I recently discovered called the technical confidence loop. And what that is that when you improve your technique, as a result of your improved technique, you get positive reinforcement from everyone saying, wow, that was really good. As a result of the positive reinforcement, you increase your confidence. So actually just improving your technique as a speaker will automatically increase your confidence, because you're going to speak better, you get better feedback, and as a result, you're going to feel better about doing it. So I would say actually doing the work, focusing on the techniques, investing in a program, coming to the workshops, working on the public speaking and on the technical side will increase your confidence.
And one thing we always say is confidence is the evidence you have. Whatever you look for, you see. So if you're looking to build confidence, it's about stacking up new evidence that suggests that you are improving in your public speaking. And the best way to do that is through speaking. Come to one of our workshops, because you'll have the opportunity to go in front of people, to speak, get the positive reinforcement, the feedback that suggests, you know what, as much as internally you think it went terribly, it was actually really good. And that's just a starting point. But you need to create that bias to action. And that's something that's really crucial, because ideally, I would love to give you a magic pill which you could take and then you just grow in confidence just automatically. But that's just not going to happen. It's through the action that you will grow in confidence.
Another important thing to understand with confidence is that it is an infinite game, which means that the aim isn't to just get confident and just to have it in your back pocket so you can have the confidence. The aim is to stay confident. So just like fitness, the aim isn't to just get fit. You need to stay fit. And if you get complacent, your fitness will go backwards. Another example of an infinite game is marriage. And this is a philosophy that Simon Sinek popularized. And it's understanding that once you are in the game, once you are improving your confidence, You will never be a 10 out of 10. A 10 out of 10 doesn't exist. It's an evolving journey. So sometimes people are anxious before a speech or while they're speaking on stage, and they think, oh my goodness, I'm not confident. I shouldn't be doing this. These nerves are a sign that I shouldn't be here. And that actually couldn't be further from the truth, because the nerves are just a sign that you care about what you are doing. It doesn't mean you're not confident. So sometimes, for example, even today, one of the lovely ladies on our cohort did a speech and she was fantastic. She looked so confident. And after I asked her, how was it? And she's like, oh, I'm shaking. But it's normal for you to be nervous. It doesn't mean that you weren't confident in the moment, because being confident means feeling the nerves and still doing it.
Exactly. And there is that misconception. For a lot of people, they think, oh, Gordon, Fred, you are so confident, so you feel no level of nerves before a presentation. That is further from the truth. We're always nervous. But with experience, we've learned how to manage it so it doesn't catch us by surprise. Because like you said, rather than seeing the anxiety and anxiousness as a sign of trouble or indication that you're going to do a bad job, it's that you're in a high-stakes situation. You care. You really want to do well. So it's all about learning going forward how to manage it so it doesn't affect your performance.
Let's talk about the conversational thing. It's something that we've kind of glossed over, and I think we really need to get to the root of it, because often people in a public speaking space are not talking about this. There are other organizations that people go to on a regular basis, and they are taught how to speak. And there is a handbook of this is how you speak, this is what you say. And the biggest problem with public speaking is that people see it as something they have to package, as a pizza delivery. Like, let me put this pizza together, put all the toppings on, and then deliver this pizza. The problem is that pizza isn't you.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
And that's the key thing. So rather than seeing public speaking as a performance, it is a conversation, you being yourself, authentic. Because that's one less thing for you to worry about. I know for me, once I first got into the corporate environment, I changed the tone of my voice. I'm sure we're all familiar with imposter syndrome. Never thinking you're good enough. So as a result, you're changing due to your environment and the external context. But as a result of that, I put a lot more pressure on myself. So I was always doubting my abilities. I never spoke up in meetings, always thinking I was going to say the wrong thing. But once I learned that there's a reason that I'm here, to make the most out of these opportunities. And when I do have those chances, be myself, be personable, get to know people, because that's something that I love to do. I was able to naturally improve in my confidence and my public speaking abilities.
So I have a question that we often get, especially from people that are founders, directors in a position of power. And they say, but how I need to look like I've got it all figured out, but I'm the boss. How can I have a conversational tone? How can I be vulnerable? Like, what would you say to those people?
And it's interesting because there's someone that's currently in our August cohort who's a founder. And these are questions he asks us after every session. And relatability is something that's so important. Creating connection is something that's going to allow people to buy into your vision and want to follow your journey. Because if we try to come across like we're communication specialists, we're so good, no one can be like us, how are people going to actually believe that they can also improve?
Simple.
But by allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and actually show people that, you know what, we was once also in that position. Even now, as a public speaking coach that does this on a daily basis, I deal with nerves, but I'm still able to actually communicate effectively. You understand that you can do it as well. So the relatability is so crucial, because once you're yourself, you can approach any situation exactly the same. If you're speaking to one person, 15, someone junior or someone senior, you can still be yourself and create that connection. So as a result, people are actually going to listen to you and your message.
Very important. And to directly answer the question as well, you know, what can you do to increase your confidence when you are on stage? Often we go into presentations, into speeches, into meetings, asking ourselves, are these people going to like me? That is a big problem, because once you pick up on their non-verbal cues, someone maybe looks uninterested, someone looks a bit puzzled. The answer to the question,
I'm doing a bad job.
that's it. Those are the questions. No, they don't like me. I'm terrible. Like,
You know what? Let me just stop right now.
Let me stop talking.
Yeah.
And some people say that sometimes I speak and I feel like I need to stop talking. I had someone tell me that on Thursday. What you should do, instead of going into a speech asking yourself, do they like me? You should go into a speech asking yourself, do these people understand my message? In doing so, if you pick up on their non-verbal cues and they look a bit puzzled, it's not because they don't like you. Maybe your delivery style isn't efficient enough. Maybe you need to slow it down. Maybe you need to increase the volume. Maybe you need to clarify on the thing that you are saying. If someone's gone on their phone, it's not that they don't like you. Maybe they're actually writing down notes.
Yes.
I actually have a story. I haven't told this story in time. I used to tell the story all the time.
You go first.
So there was this lady who did an interview, all right? So she had to go through 4 different stages, and she was at this 4th stage of an interview where they asked her a question and she was answering the question. There were 4 people on the panel as she was delivering this interview, and the main decision maker, the main boss, he actually went on his phone as she was delivering this interview. Of course, the thoughts in her mind were, oh my goodness, this person, he's not even listening to me. He's finding me boring. So as a result, she just wasn't very sure of herself. And the rest of the interview, she wasn't really her full self.
Yeah.
At the end of the interview, the gentleman said, you know what? You started off really, really well. But then, unfortunately, the rest of the questions, you didn't answer very well. So we can't offer you a job at the result. But it's really a shame because at the beginning, your answers were so good that I had to go on my phone to write your name down on my notes.
Imagine.
And I remember she was absolutely devastated as a result. And then she came to us asking for help. But understand that because she went into it thinking, do they like me? And the person went on her phone, she thought, oh my goodness, he doesn't like me. It's all over. Whereas in fact, the person was writing down her name on his phone because she was doing so well.
And it's important to have that shift in perspective because I've been in a similar situation, always having on the forefront of my mind, do they like me? And as a result, because I'm inside my own head, I'm just not paying attention. I'm not present in the moment. And I just start tripping over my words, making mistakes. My mind is going blank. I'm being asked questions. I know the answer, but I'm now becoming hesitant. But by having that shift in perspective and asking yourself, do they understand me? You now become a conscious communicator. You can start to make improvements in the moment. Because one of the most frustrating things is that only at the very end you realize I spoke too fast. I was looking at the ground. I was just not maybe maintaining eye contact as much as I should have. But when you're asking yourself, do they understand me? What can I do in this moment? You're able to improve so much quicker. And it's about you having that ability to make those self-assessments and being honest with yourself. Some of us are just so disillusioned and thinking, oh, we're good. There's nothing that I need to work on. Or I'm so bad I can't actually become better in my public speaking. But as you mentioned, it's an infinite game. And practice leads to improvement. We can all improve with time.
So we can't stress it enough. If you go into a speech asking yourself, are these people going to like me? You're going to perform because you're going to do everything you can for them to try and like you.
Yeah.
So depending on what the kind of audience is, you're going to think to yourself, okay, what does this kind of audience like? And you're going to perform accordingly, which is why people do the code switching thing.
Yeah.
In maybe a corporate environment, they think, okay, they would want me to speak like this, so they end up speaking like this. Instead, going to a speech and thinking, do they understand my message? And that way you be your authentic self and you just deliver it in a way that people understand you. So if you're someone who usually speaks really fast like myself, since they need to understand my message, I'm going to slow it down. If you're someone who speaks with quite a low tone of voice, for them to understand your message, you're going to need to increase the volume.
And it makes a big difference. So there was a lady from the community, I mentioned this to you, that actually wanted to have a one-to-one session with me. And she was asking, I've got a big interview coming up. I've been unemployed for the last 12 to 18 months. How should I approach it? And I said to her, be yourself. Be interested in that person. Ask questions. Because by trying to go beyond the surface level and create those connections with people, and you get to know them as an individual, there's a lot less that you need to be nervous about. And as a result, you're able to actually get the outcomes that you're after. Because a common mistake I used to always make is thinking that I need to be perfect. I need to put a code switch, change the tone of my voice. And it was just too much pressure. When I found actually being myself was so much more beneficial. People that were so senior, they just wanted to be around me, have conversations. And I was able to elevate my career so much faster as a result.
Being yourself is truly a superpower.
It is.
And something else that's going to really help you gain confidence on stage is the understanding that 9 times out of 10, people don't actually care anywhere near as much as you think they do. And often when we think people are judging us, what's actually happening is that we are judging ourselves and we think everyone else is judging us as a result. But 9 times out of 10, people aren't actually judging us. And even if they were, should that be affecting the way that you communicate and present? It shouldn't.
And this is the problem. It's like the spotlight effect. You're hyper-focusing on yourself, your mistakes. So as a result, you're not able to connect with other people. And the reality is, I always say, assume people are rooting for you. Because at the end of the day, there's a reason that you're in that room. If it's an interview, they didn't just pluck you out of a lucky draw and say, oh, you should come. No, there's a reason that you're in that room. So you should start empowering yourself. So when it comes to public speaking, as much as we'll put a focus on the technical aspect, I'll say 70 to 80% of it is a mental
100%.
battle that we need to all overcome, because
Totally
we all
agree.
deal with self-doubt. We
Totally
all feel as
agree.
though we're not good enough. I do all the time. But then I remind myself, snap out of it, Gordon, you are good enough.
And that's important to understand, that even the most confident people at some point tell themselves that they may not be good enough.
Yeah.
Having these thoughts doesn't make you A person, B person. It just makes you a human being.
Exactly.
You know what I'm trying to
And I
say?
think the key thing is you shouldn't allow your nerves to create an obstacle in you now being able to perform and to present effectively. Because the reality is you're always going to have the nerves. They'll always be present. So it's about understanding how to manage it in the moment. So as Fred mentioned, focusing only on the introduction. Those first 45 seconds, let it go well. And then from there, just keep on going. Maybe having prompts, so bullet points, something that we always advise. So when you are preparing a presentation, start with the paragraphs, go into sentences, and then bullet points. So at points, if maybe your mind goes blank and you're not entirely sure what you're speaking about, that can allow you to refocus on the message. And then you have that refocus. Because the mistake is when we put the focus on ourselves as a speaker and we're just conscious of our heart rate, our body language, all these little mistakes we're making. But putting the focus on the message and the audience and having at the forefront of your mind, do they understand me? You can address your challenges. You can improve faster as a result.
On the introduction thing, though, is so important that comes with practice. If you have practiced enough, then you should be comfortable enough to just focus on your introduction, because you've practiced and you know what you're going to say next, which leads me on to the next point, which is to practice.
Practice.
It's a no-brainer, but honestly, practice. And also, I say practice in a similar stimulus of what you would have to do in real life. So, for example, if you know you have a meeting in front of 15 people, maybe not necessarily 15 people, but practice speaking in front of a small group of people. Because often, people only practice in front of the mirror, in front of themselves, and then they will master that. But now, when it's time to speak in front of people, it's a totally different game.
And without practice, you don't deserve to be confident.
Facts.
At the end of the day, if I just said I want to sleep in my bed for the next 2 weeks,
I want to be confident.
and then for our next workshop on the 15th of September, I just got out of my bed, I will be nervous. That's the reality. It's only with practice that I deserve to be confident once I'm on the stage, because it's like, I've done this many times. I've stacked up the evidence. So for anyone listening to this, you need to find an environment that's conducive for you to improve in your public speaking and to actually practice at the end of the day. There's no other shortcut. I'm sorry. There really isn't.
100%. Another thing I can think of, probably the last thing that I will say, another thing I can think of that makes people really nervous when they're on stage is when they make a mistake. And I think it's really funny because no one else apart from you knew you made that mistake. Like often, if you go into a presentation speaking to a bunch of people, we don't know what you're going to say next.
Don't know.
So you slightly going on a tangent or slightly going off your script doesn't matter at all, because until you told us, we would have had no idea.
And that's why it's important to maintain your composure on the stage. So if you slightly go off script, you make a mistake from your perspective, just feel calm, relax. And this is why we always encourage people to pause, take your time, have a measured approach. Because rather than speaking very quickly as I'm doing right now, then I'm going to trip over my words, take my time. Because it benefits you for this reason. You're able to align your thoughts with your words, and then you can think about what you want to say next. And you have that clarity of thought. And even for your audience, they benefit because they can now follow exactly what you're saying, and they have that level of understanding. Because the key thing is, do they understand me? And pace is one thing that you can adjust to ensure that happens.
100%. So to end it, I'll ask you, then you can ask me. When was the last time or a time that you remember being very nervous or not very confident on stage, and what did you do to rectify?
Interestingly, it was one of my classes in July. And it was my first class in a couple of weeks. So I was thinking to myself when I got there, I'll be fine. I was talking to people, but then when it started, my heart started racing. But because I've come to realize with experience, this is something that always happen, I remembered, let me focus on the introduction, which is, my name is Gordon Williams. I'm a public speaking coach, and this is what I'm going to be going through with you today. And there'll be opportunity for each of you to improve in your public speaking. And also remind myself, because of those nerves, to breathe.
You practiced that one, innit?
Yeah,
that was
so
a
it's
good
the
intro.
breathe.
That's a good intro.
So it's the breathing. So something that always helps me is by aligning my breath and my voice. So as I exhale, I start to speak. It's something that helps me to remind myself that I am calm, I'm relaxed. Because especially when you're tense, again, excitement, anxiety, they come from the same place. And sometimes it can become overwhelming, and then it just affects your performance entirely. So breathing and just remembering to focus on the introduction, it does help me.
That's what helped you, yeah. And yeah, the last time I was quite anxious before a speech was in July as well. I did an awards evening.
Oh yeah, you told me about that. You said surprisingly you was nervous before starting. Yeah.
Because the thing is, I don't do many awards evenings because obviously they only happen in July at the end of the academic year, because I speak a lot in education mainly. So during the year, I'm doing motivational stuff, mental resilience, and I've done this awards evening. And actually, what made me a bit nervous is that the gentleman that booked me explicitly told me to spoke about some things, and I hadn't had that before. Usually they're just like, you're the speaker, come and speak.
So there was added pressure.
Yeah, so he was like, speak about these things. And I was like, okay. And so he had this saying that he would tell his students that he told me, which is called eat the frog. And eat the frog just means do the hard bit. Like have the difficult conversation. Even though you don't want to eat the frog, do it. So I wanted to implement that into my presentation as well, to surprise him so I had all these external things that I wouldn't usually have. And I remember sitting there, he asked me to arrive for 7. Let's say my talk, they say the awards evening was from 6 to 8. Probably wasn't, but let's say it was from 6 to 8. So he told me to arrive for 7 so that I can do my talk from 7:15 to 7:45 for 30 minutes. But I said, I'll arrive from 6 and watch the whole evening. And it was a great evening. And as I was sat there, my heart was just beating. I was like, oh man, I started to catastrophize. And I haven't done this in so long. I was like, what if I get these new bits that I'm going to speak about?
So how did you deal with it in that moment?
So how I dealt with it, I identified it straight away. So that's the thing. You can't help it sometimes. Like, my mind was catastrophizing, telling me the worst case scenario that I was going to mess it up. I identified it and I'm like, my mind just told me I'm going to get it incredibly wrong. So I totally scrapped it. I started diaphragmatic breathing from my stomach, and started to find presence. Because what happens when we get anxious is that we are anticipating what the future is going to be, and we can never guess what the future is going to be.
Wrong move.
So what I stopped thinking about my speech and started just being present and just enjoying the awards evening, the moment. I was critiquing the teachers' public speaking. As a public speaking coach, I was looking at the teachers like, you guys can't speak.
And that was your way of being present.
That's my way of being present.
Yeah.
Actually, let me stop thinking about later. What's happening now? The teacher speaking. Let me critique her public speaking. Yeah. So I identified it. I started breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, and I just found presence. And that really, really helped me. I just present in the moment, stopped thinking about it. And I was a lot less, I still had a little bit of anxiety, but then I aced the beginning and then it was fine. So that's the last time that I felt
it. And the reality of the situations, irrespective of the context, if you're just speaking to me, it's awards evening. You're speaking to hundreds of people. You are still just speaking and you're the person that's in control. And by actually attaining the presence in that moment, you have that realization that I've done this before. And even before then, something you probably didn't mention is practicing. Practicing.
Yeah.
Putting in the time to actually get yourself to the point that once you are there and you then deal with the nerves, you're able to actually present.
So important. So it's something I didn't mention, but I practice a lot. Yes. Even as I'm driving and I'm on my way, I'm practicing. Like I'll go over a presentation a number of different times so that in the moment, I don't need to think about it and I know that I will ace it. But if you don't practice enough, then of course you're going to be anxious. That's with anything. That's not even public speaking. If you've got a driving lesson coming on, driving test, and you haven't done many driving lessons, you're going to be nervous.
That's the truth.
If you've got a maths test coming up and you haven't done much maths practice, you're going to be nervous.
That's the truth. And when I'm practicing for our workshops, even though I'm doing it in the comfort of my home, I'm visualizing that there's an audience in front of me. I'm putting myself under that sort of pressure. How will I deal with it in that moment? Because once I think that there is an audience, I'm like, oh, there is a bit of nerves, even though there's nobody there. But I'm able to actually remind myself, breathe, take your time. So it's that practice. Without it, you don't deserve to be confident. And I put in hours. That's the only way I can get to that point where when I do go on the stage, it does look effortless. There's time that was put in to get to that point.
Totally. So I gave you a number of different things. This episode was about how to be more confident on stage. So to summarize, it's understanding that there are things you do prior, like the practicing, that enable you to actually have the confidence. Once you're on stage, there are things that you can do like stepping forward and having intention. There are things you can do like breathing because the spike in anxiety lasts 45 seconds. So if you step forward, You take a deep breath and you introduce yourself. The 45 seconds is up and you're going to be less anxious.
Do just remember, along with taking that step forward, the measured movement across the stage. Movement helps to alleviate a lot of the pressure we find ourselves under because we're a lot more natural in our delivery. So actually equipping yourself with those tips will make a big difference going forward. And just practice and speak, okay? Only way you're improving your public speaking, through the speaking, okay? Come to our workshops, our taster classes, contact us. We can help each and every one of you.
Speaking of our workshops, I would like to invite you to our next public
When
speaking
is it?
accelerator
I'm
workshop,
excited.
which is on the 15th of September. It is from 6:30.
So please come on time.
It's from 6:30 to 9 o'clock in partnership with Mission Work.
And we're going through how you can master the art of body language and grow in confidence on the stage.
So a lot of the things that we addressed today, you're not only going to get the chance to reinforce the learning, but you're going to get the chance to practice, because now you got the information and now it's time for
the implementation.
Thank you so much.
And you'll also get the feedback from myself and Fred, which will be beneficial. So understanding your opportunities to improve and what you need to work on.
We have also created a free PDF file for yourself, and it's literally for you. Yes, for you. So what I want you guys to do is to send us a direct message with the words PDF. We'll ask you for your email address and we'll email you that free PDF. We made it just for you, free.
And for anyone that hasn't got the availability to come to any of our upcoming workshops, we also have an online course. We got so
many things
we are too nice.
We have a brand new online program just for yourself. This online program is called the Confident Communicator / Conscious Communicator. And this program is tailor-made for people that want to improve their confidence in public speaking. We tell you everything that you need to know. If you ask someone, what do I need to do to be a confident speaker? We give you every single thing that you need to know. Now, this program comes at a very low price of £29. So if you want more information on how to get the program, get in touch with us and we can give you that program.
And if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram. That's Big Public Speaking. Send us a DM and we'll be able to provide you with all the information. Thank you for listening.
Until then, believe in greatness.
B.I.G.